Hello everyone, good morning and welcome back to Sports Today. We bring you this video segment every single morning to help you catch up with things that you may have missed out on whilst you were catching up on some all-important rest. Because let's face it, whilst you need sleep, I need sleep, the whole world needs sleep, the world of sport doesn't really sleep. There's always something or the other going on, and it can be a little tough to keep abreast with every little development that is taking place. But worry not, that's why we're here. We've got you covered. So without further ado, let's take a look at what all has been happening in the world of sport that we can catch up on to start what should be a very interesting Wednesday. And let's start off with the T20 World Cup because it is drawing nearer and nearer. And whilst IPL action as of now is taking a lot of precedence, there's plenty of interest as to what exactly the Indian team will be doing and how it is that they'll be going about their preparations for the T20 World Cup. And one thing that we're getting to hear now is that India could potentially only be playing one warm-up game ahead of the T20 World Cup. They've in fact refused the opportunity to play a second T20I or rather T20 warm-up game for the T20 World Cup. The reason for that being is, of course, the tight scheduling of the IPL, as well as the fact that the second warm-up game, which is expected to take place, would be taking place in a different city from the one that the Indian team are based in. India are based in New York for the majority of the tournament. They'll be playing one game in Florida, but that comes towards the end of the group stages. However, the only other venue logistically that would have been available for India to be playing in a second warm-up game would apparently be Florida. And the Indian team didn't want to leave their base of New York, go to Florida only to play a warm-up game. So they have reportedly turned down the opportunity to play a warm-up game, a second warm-up game ahead of the T20 World Cup. They'll be playing just the one warm-up game, and that warm-up game will be taking place in their base of New York. Now, you can understand the logic behind this because again, it would require a lot of travel. You're flying from New York, which is of course the East Coast, to Florida, which is down south. But of course, we hope that there's some sort of a compromise that could be reached, which would allow the team to play two warm-up games. Because again, it doesn't make much sense to play just the one warm-up game. And I know what you'll be thinking, that they don't really matter that much, and they're unofficial games, but it also ensures that the team gets a chance to play together, maybe experiment a little bit as well. Let's see if any solution can be reached. As of now, it's just going to be the one warm-up game for the Indian T20 World Cup team. Now, switching focus to, of course, the IPL game, as I said, that will take a lot of precedence. And yesterday's game between DC and LSG all but eliminated both sides, because whilst Delhi Capitals now cannot make the playoffs unless something really major happens mathematically, the same can be said about LSG. And after the game, Lucknow Super Giants skipper KL Rahul was asked about, what are the issues that the team had been facing, and he pinpointed one rather interesting thing, which in a way implicated himself. He said that, this has been a problem right through the season. We keep losing a lot of wickets in the power play, and we never get a solid start to get the likes of Stoinis and Puran in. That is the big reason why we're in this position. Now, he's not entirely wrong in saying that, Lucknow haven't really been able to get good starts throughout the season and they end up losing wickets. But a lot of that is down to the fact that Rahul's opening partner, who's more often than not a Quinton de Kock, would be getting out early, and then Rahul, never himself the quickest of starters, would have to play the consolidatory role, which meant that they were not only losing wickets, but they were not taking advantage of the power play. Of course, the counter argument that could be made is that Rahul should have kept going on anyway and should have looked to score quick runs rather than big runs, because if he did that and in the process ended up getting out, well, then he could have just simply gotten in the likes of a Stoinis and Puran earlier rather than have to make them wait to come in towards the latter stage of the game. So it's something that is in many ways self-implicatory, because again, it does point out that he himself has not been doing good enough with the bat. And speaking of course, KL Rahul, a lot of the spotlight was in him, even in the previous game in the Sunrisers, but for all the wrong reasons. One, he ended up playing a pretty poor knock. Then there was that confrontation that took place between him and his franchise owner Sanjiv Goenka. Now, they have reportedly buried the hatchet, and you can see there are images of them doing the rounds on social media, including here on Sports Today, wherein you can see that the two of them are hugging, and they were, Goenka had hosted a lunch for the two of them, and it seems that they've cleared the air. But they did end up having another conversation after yesterday's game. And this time around, though, the good news for Lucknow fans and indeed people who enjoy normal etiquette is the fact that this wasn't an animated conversation in the least. They did have some conversations, but Goenka was smiling more often than not. and he seemed to be having a far more relaxed demeanor than he did the previous time they were speaking in public. Hopefully, it's an indicator that Goenka has learned his lesson. And I'm not saying that he shouldn't admonish KL Rahul or anything of the sort. Remember, franchises pay a lot of money to these players to be performing for their teams. And if there are no performances coming, then they have well within their rights to hold the players accountable. But perhaps it's better to do that in a private space. A little bit more cricket news before we move on to sports beyond that. Fraser has been the subject of a lot of speculation, for the Delhi Capitals. Granted, he didn't really do well in yesterday's games, but his explosive starts at the top of the order have been a key reason why DC's form kind of turned around. And Saurav Ganguly, who was of course the team's director of cricket, dropped a little bit of a hint that they could potentially be looking to retain Fraser in whatever fashion possible come the next season as well. He told Star Sports that teams will be wanting Fraser. We will want him for us in the future because he's a game changer, and that's what we need in this format. We will see how it goes, because again, we will see how it goes leaves things very open-ended, and I can understand why that's the case, because there's no clarity yet on how it is that next year's mega auction will proceed, and there's no guarantee that even if they have a few retentions that they can accommodate a Fraser, they may very well choose to go and get him via the auction route as well. What seems clear is that DC do seemingly have future plans planned around Fraser. Switching focus now to the world of football, and Manchester City are now one win away from being crowned English Premier League champions for the fourth season running. That is because in their game against Tottenham Hotspur, they ended up registering a 2-0 win courtesy of a brace from Erling Haaland. Bit of a slap in the face for those who said he never performs in big games, although many will argue that Tottenham aren't really a big club, so it just continues the streak. Any jokes aside, what it means now is that City, having played the same number of games as Arsenal, which is 37, hold a 2-point lead going into the final game week, which will of course be taking place on this Sunday. And if they win that game, then they're guaranteed to be champions regardless of what Arsenal do. And City's fixture is a pretty easy one. They're up against West Ham United at home. And not just that, the last 5 games that West Ham have played at City's home stadium, which is the Etihad Stadium, the aggregate score is 15-4 in favor of City. You may as well just give City the title at this point in time, because I know if they've not officially won it, them winning it at this point seems a bit like a formality. And in knock-on effect news, what happened with Tottenham Hotspur's defeat is that their hopes of making it to the top 4 are now dashed, because Aston Villa, who were the team in 4th place, have now officially qualified for the Champions League. Incidentally, they did so without actually having to play their game, because now with the result of City's last game, and Aston Villa have also played the same number of games, 37, they have a 5-point lead to City, which means to Spurs rather, which means that they cannot lose that 4th position. So they're officially in 4th. Congratulations to Villa. This will in fact be the first time that they officially play in the Champions League format, because whilst they are European Cup winners, they last participated in the European Cup in the 1982-83 season, which was 1 year after they had actually won the tournament. So since then, they've not taken part in the European elite competition, and I think it's safe to say that the kind of job that Unai Emery, the manager, has done, it's been nothing short of phenomenal. So congratulations to Aston Villa. Speaking of congratulations, La Liga champions Real Madrid celebrated them being crowned the champions of Spain by thrashing Alaves 5-0. You heard that right, 5-0. Not taking their foot off the pedal at all, especially when they know that there's still a Champions League title to be won. But it is phenomenal the kind of run they've been on, and person who was central to that particular run was Jude Bellingham. Bellingham scored the first goal against Alaves, then set up or played a hand in the other 4. So that's phenomenal, whichever way you look at it. Switching focus now to the world of tennis, and Dominic Thiem, someone who of course is a Grand Slam winner, won the US Open in 2020, or rather 2019 rather, sorry, not 2020. Thiem has missed out on getting a wild card for the French Open, which means that he'll have to, if he wants to play the Grand Slam, go through the qualifiers route. Now Thiem will be retiring from the tour at the end of this season, because he's been plagued by a consistent wrist issue that has been bothering him for quite some time, and it's a bit of a sad end to a career which many thought had a lot of promise. But it means he'll have to go through the qualifiers if he has to play the French Open. Couple more news, and this time with an Indian perspective before we call it a wrap on the morning wrap. Federation Cup is a tournament that is currently taking place in India. It's an athletics meet, and it's something that can actually help athletes qualify for Paris Olympics if they haven't already, because if they get to the marks which are needed, that they'll be able to qualify automatically. And there's a bit of bad news in that regard for two athletes. One is Jasmine Aldrin, and well, Jasmine Aldrin is a long jumper who, of course, holds India's national record, and his form has been, kind of going off the boil for the last year. He has the national record of 8.42, but in the Federation Cup, he only ended up, getting to 7.99 meters at his jump, which means that he hasn't qualified for the Paris Olympics just yet. If he had to qualify, he needed a jump of 8.27 meters. And 8.27, if he had gotten there or reached it, he'd be into the Olympics no matter what, because of course that's how the automatic qualification works. The good news for Aldrin is that he can still qualify for the Paris Olympics, because right now he is able to make it on the basis of his rankings. He's currently ranked 26th and needs to stay in the top 32 of those rankings by June 30th, because if he does that, then he'll make it even if he doesn't end up reaching the automatic qualification mark. Now, another person who ended up disappointing a little bit was Tejinder Pal Singh Toor. Of course, someone who is also a national record holder, or someone who has done well for India at this level. He, the shot put athlete, ended up also missing out on the qualification mark, the automatic qualification mark, which is 21.50, but he only got throws of 20.14 and 20.38 away. That was enough for him to win the gold medal at the Federation Cup. But that doesn't really matter, given the goal would be to seal qualification for the Paris Olympics. Now, his personal best, which is of course 21.77 meters and would be enough to qualify, had come last year, but it came outside of the qualification window. So let's see if he too can seal qualification soon enough. And that's it from this edition of the Morning Wrap with Sports Today. Thank you guys so much for joining us. As always, if you enjoy our work, please don't forget, like, share, subscribe, tap that bell, leave us a comment, follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Don't forget to download the Sports Tech app, and if you're already on the channel, go ahead, check out some other videos we've done as well. For now, from my side, it's goodbye.